All right, now it's broadcasting and also recording. Good luck, everyone. It's going to be
Great.
great.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for having us. All right. Hi, everyone. We'll get started right on time to keep everyone on schedule. Thank you guys so much for joining us for our first Wertheim Wisdom Wednesday. I'm Jennifer Quintana. I'm the head of development for the FIU College of Business. And I'm so excited to welcome our special guests today on a really timely topic. But first, I want to talk to you about why we're doing this. Wertheim Wisdom Wednesdays is really a virtual mini-series that we created as a version of our signature event of the Wertheim Lecture Series, sponsored by our dear friend and supporter, Herb Wertheim. So thank you to him for allowing us to do this and change things up a bit given the current climate. So we created this really as a way, one small way that we could be a resource during this time. As an anchor institution, I think in Miami and South Florida, we really aim to continue to do that for you guys in any way that we can. There are several ways you guys can connect with us to get some help if you need it. You may have heard our SBDC is everywhere these days. So proud of them. They've secured over $4 million in loans for our small businesses down here in Miami. Our School of Hospitality is doing amazing things in the hospitality industry, securing dollars for our restaurants and our restaurant workers. So we'll be sending out to you links and ways that you can connect with us if there's any way that we can help or be a resource to you guys. And, you know, conversely, I think one of the top priorities for us as a university is helping our students through this time. Many of them have been affected, losing their jobs. As you know, many of our students work full time, supporting their families. And so it's been a difficult, I think, transition for a lot of our students, and we're really focusing on securing emergency aid for our students. So I think, you know, we're in this together. If you are in a position where you can help, please do. And if you are in a position where you need help, please look to us and count on us as a resource. So we'll be sending out both links to our resources and to go ahead and contribute to our emergency funds if you are able to do that. So a couple of housekeeping rules before I intro our rock stars that are going to be leading the discussion today. Please go ahead and submit your questions if you have any throughout the program on the chat. We'll be able to keep track of those and ask those questions during the last 15 minutes or so when we have the Q&A. In addition to that, you'll get some polling questions that'll come up on your screen. These are questions that we kind of came up with. We'd love to hear from you and from our audience. There's over 200 of you out there, so we get some great data back from you guys if you're willing to participate in that. And I think finally, I'd just love to introduce our topic and our two amazing speakers. We're talking about sales today, which I'm really excited is our first subject matter, because it's the lifeblood of any business, right? If you're not selling, the business is not thriving, right? So we have a really, really special guest for you guys today, Eric Maldonado, who is one of our amazing alumni, was going to be our Distinguished Alumni Torch Award recipient this year, but unfortunately that event got postponed. And we decided this was not going to be canceled. So we moved forward with it, and he was gracious enough to lend us some of his time to share some of his tactics and maybe pivot points, how we're reframing how we're doing sales, how we're talking to our clients during this time. And the conversation is going to be headed by the co-director of our sales lab, Rafael Sortero, who is a famous professor, I would say, on campus grounds. He's very beloved by our students. We're really lucky to have him today. I won't steal any more time from you guys. I would love for just to turn it over to you, Rafa. You guys can introduce yourselves, and thank you guys both so much for taking the time today to do this.
Thanks for having me.
So thank you, Jennifer. So first of all,
The guest here is Eric, and I'm going to let him introduce himself. And I'm just going to start with a quick bunch of questions so we can take advantage of his time here and try to leverage it all. So, Eric, first of all, tell me in your own words, how did you get into sales? Why did you get into sales? Tell me a little bit about your career, how you got there, because we all have different paths into that particular amazing career. And it's amazing how many different paths people have to get there.
Yeah, well, I'll start by saying, and I know Jenny has heard this before, that, when I was coming close to graduating at FIU, I took a sales course at FIU. That was, I had no idea really what I was going to do when I was going to graduate. I come from a family that is, strictly blue collar, and had no real guidance from my folks at home. So I took a sales course that opened my eyes to sales, and the interesting thing about the sales course was they talked about different types of sales. That there were many different types of organizations in the world, selling types of careers, whether you're selling pharmaceuticals, construction products. There was very different sales models that existed in the marketplace that made sales a very diverse occupation. And I took the course as kind of as an elective. It opened my eyes. And when I graduated, I interviewed with any type of company for sales or anything else. And I quickly realized that some of the jobs I was interviewing were desk-bound analyst jobs. And I felt that I was not a desk-bound person, and I really wanted to be in the field, meeting people and talking to people. I thought that leaned into some of the things that I did well in my previous experiences, as I worked through school. So I started interviewing exclusively at sales gigs, and I found that, my first job out of Miami was working for a division of 3M in Miami Lakes, selling copy machines in the Little Havana and by the airport over by Lejeune Road and in Coral Gables. So that's how I got started, honestly. And the nice thing about it was, selling copiers is not a sexy gig at all, but 3M was a major corporation that invested in its people, and they taught me how to sell. And once the light bulb went off on top of my head, I cracked the code in terms of how to do the job. And I say crack the code, it's a little presumptuous of me, but I felt like at the time I had cracked the code. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the freedom, I enjoyed the flexibility, and I enjoyed the ability to control my income.
Good. So, in looking back to that career, tell me a little bit more about what have been your biggest challenges, getting here,
Yep,
all the way here, and how did you deal with them? How did you manage that change, and how did you adapt?
sure. Well, the thing about a sales career is, if you're good, you get paid. If you're good, people want to recruit you. And the biggest challenge and biggest mistake people make is making the right decision on where to go, because the grass is always greener. Now, I've been selling for 33 years, almost 34. I've had 6 jobs. Now, that may or may not sound like a lot. I can tell you in a sales career, it's not a lot. I spent the last 16 years at the same firm. But, the biggest mistake that I've seen people make is jumping too early or jumping to a place that they thought was going to be better than where they were at, because sales are full of promises. Everybody wants a good salesperson. Every product owner, every business owner swears that their product is the best and that you'll make more money selling their product. The biggest challenge was picking the right organizations to join. And really that, there was 2 things that I focused on that actually worked out well. One was picking the right people, right? Making sure that you align yourself with people that were very successful, had values that aligned with your own. And the second was the market that you wanted to sell in. So I sold, basically commodity products for the first, 7 or 8 years out of school. When I say commodity products, I mean products that were highly competitive, had a lot of different, customers that you could sell to, very large addressable markets. And it was very hard to differentiate. I was successful in those two careers, but that when I realized that I was just another person, another number, I wanted to do something a little bit different. At that time in the early 90s, the internet was coming along and there was, technology was changing. So, I realized that I wanted to lean into the changes that were happening in the world around me and do something that wasn't so commoditized. So, I followed that into a technology sale, into several technology sales role that worked out well. The internet blew up and I grew my career along with it. And then when the internet exploded, there was a lot of compliance challenges. I followed my feet to where took some compliance solutions, and I've been doing some form of technology and compliance solutions since those days of selling commodities. So I was really around, making sure that we're making good decisions around the people and the organizations. And the other that I always tell people is every company except for the first job I ever had offered me a piece of the company's equity into the company, so that if I did well and the company did well, not only did I get a paycheck, I got shares in a company that actually grew in value. And I found that to be very, a very strong indication of how the company treated its employees and how I could, drive my success.
Good. So you mentioned two words that caught my attention. I wrote that down here. So tell me what you mean by a desk-bound person.
Sure. Well, I readily admit I'm not the smartest guy in the room. I never am, and if you ever find that you're the smartest guy in the room, leave. Find a room where there's a lot more smart people around you. But coming out of school, there are a lot of analyst roles, and some people are good at analyst roles where you sit down and can look at some numbers and work on project plans. But you're basically working inside an office environment. In sales, at least the way we used to sell, which is changing right now, which we're undergoing a sea change as we speak today. You have to be out in the field generally. You have to see people. You have to talk to people. You have to figure out how to get to conversations to really help drive revenue and increase market share. And I like that about the job, that I could, work a territory. First job, whether it was walking up and down Gallo or Lejeune Road, or as I progressed my career traveling to different cities or different countries, I like being around people in different cultures and really developing communities for the products that I was selling and making sure that I was a part of that community. So being out in the field was very, very important to me early days.
And I think that I get the same feeling in my experience in the past. It's always been about the people you meet, the relationships you establish worldwide, the cultures you meet and what you learn about it and whatnot. So as you're looking to that, and let's start talking about, okay, so we have learned a lot in our lives as prior salespeople. So tell me how you see the future, because it looks like sales is going to change.
Sales will change. It's actually changing. I mean, this coronavirus, this pandemic that we're in the middle of, it's accelerating a change that has been slowly happening over the last probably 10 to 15 years, right? So, here we are talking on Zoom. There's 200 people listening. I held a sales meeting this morning with my entire sales team. Oh, sorry, something popped up here.
That's not for you.
Okay.
Don't worry about it.
Let me just shrink that there. I had a meeting with my entire sales team today. We had 300 people in the meeting. A month ago, I used to have people gathering in a conference room in New York, in Tokyo, in London, dialing in on, what now looks to be old school technology to do a conference call and, with the video calls. We have technology now. We are not going to travel as much for a couple of reasons. One is health reasons. This pandemic is here. It's going to take a couple of years to get it through the system, get vaccine. So, travel is going to be limited. Number two, airlines are going to be more expensive. There's just not going to be as much air travel. The cost of travel is going to go up. We are still expected to deliver for our investors, for our employees. So we have to figure out how to sell. So using, devices like Zoom or WebEx or whatever, Google or, all the technology companies that are out there are going to be the way of the future. Now, for the students, they're all digital natives. They're used to this. They do this every day on their phone, talking to their friends. But for folks that have been, in the field for a number of years, this is new. For customers, this is new. I will always say, and I say this, and my peers that are, in my age range hate it when I say it, but it's true. It is much more difficult to sell now than ever before. And I'm not talking about because we're in a pandemic, that's making it more difficult, but it's more difficult to sell now because more people have access to more information. The customers have access to more information. They're smarter than they were, 30 years ago, where industry associations, large companies could control the flow of information, get information, and educate customers in a way that would influence a buying decision. Today, customers have access to information. Now, they don't even need to see you. So they can actually, where you could, charm somebody, shake a hand, use a little bit of voice inflection, read a room when you have a couple customers. That's a little bit more difficult to do now than it was before. But we've got to figure out how to do it and how to get to customers and how to engage customers. Because at the end of the day, if you look around, whatever room you're in, everything in this world is bought and sold. And there's a good salesperson in front leading the charge trying to move that product, right? So, what you need to do is really understand how to, deliver value to a customer that you may never meet face to face. You have to build your brand, because the minute you call that person, he's going to log onto your LinkedIn page, see who you are, see who you're connected with. You have to make sure that your digital presence maps to the type of person that person wants to do business with. That wasn't so important a month ago. Now, critically important.
I do agree with you. And it's not a matter of what we have to do, but how quickly, because there is a sense of urgency that we have had a pause in business. It looks like it, right? We'll talk about it, but we'll have a pause in business. And when we restart again, there has to be a sense of urgency to kind of try to catch up or make up some of the ground that has been lost. So, and I know that you manage a group of people and you have a big business. So tell me, how are you managing that change? And there was a question here by Laura Padron who said, how did you pivot the sales team? And regarding metrics, how do you start measuring? What are the new measures? Because before, you remember, it might be number of calls, which will require you to go out and travel and whatnot. Yeah. Now you may be able to monitor more, but at the same time, it may be more frequent. Yeah. So let's discuss that.
So a couple of things. One is we have to prepare people and let them know how to do some of the basics, right? So, that means structuring your day. That means putting on a collared shirt because you're going to be looking at somebody even though you're working out of your house. Now, this is during a pandemic, but even when it's not during a pandemic, we are going to continue to do these face-to-face meetings, right? So, making sure that if you're starting your day and, you know exactly what your goals are, which is, by the way, pre-pandemic, post-pandemic, or AC, BC, whatever you want to say, you know exactly what your goals are. Your goal setting should be what you need to do to get your job done. Now, you may have to adjust those goals in this particular time because of the pandemic, but you should still have goals, and they should be very clear goals. Who do I want to talk to? Why do I want to talk to them? Why will they pick up my phone or respond to my email? And understanding, how that's going to work. And if they respond to you in a positive way, you're good. In a negative way, what is your response? Everything should be scripted. So if they come back to you and say, I already used your competitor, you should know what you should respond to and how you should respond to sell a meeting. Because remember, when you're doing outreach to clients, even though, we're working with Zoom or knocking on doors or calling on a phone the way, that is traditionally done, people don't wake up in the morning and they don't think about Raphael or Eric. They think about their job, what they need to do for a living. So you have to deliver them value to show them how you're going to help them make more money, save money, operate more efficiency, or manage their risk. At the end of the day, one of those four things are what customers are looking to do if they own a business or are responsible for a business. So if you do that every day and understand what your goals are and then, operate to those goals, you'll be ahead of the game. And then you have to be a professional. You have to know, if they say yes, how to run an online meeting versus an in-person meeting. There's a difference. How to, let long pauses occur so that people can talk and ask questions, how to prompt questions, questioning techniques, how to get people to talk so that when you get them on the phone, it's a conversation. What I have found in the last month is I'm having less conversations, but they're more meaningful, much more meaningful. So as we get out the other end, I know that there are people that I'm going to call up and I'll eventually get in their office and have a conversation to really drive what we need, to drive our deals forward. I'm not sure I answered the question that.
No, I think that you got there. So let me expand on that, because I truly believe that changes have to be made in how we measure the number of activities that our salespeople are going to be doing. But I always told my students that salespeople are the only ones that have permission to be out of the office, because they had to be closer to the customer, not closer to the office, right?
Right.
But now it's going to be changing a little bit to the point that we're saying, hey, you can get close to the customer from the office anyway.
Right.
And as a matter of fact, it's going to help us save a little bit of the budget, the time, and everything else of all the things that we had to do before. Traveling, getting into the plane, you're going to be safe, spending all this time that was really dead time in an airport, although we found out that we could connect and keep connecting on whatever. So this is going to change. The question is, do we have enough to now say, okay, so if the salesperson is not in the office, it's at home, because by the way, he lives in Tampa and my customers are in Tampa and my office is really in Miami. This is the big question. How can I know that I'm going to trust that that person is out?
Yeah, well, there's a couple of things. I find that one of the things that we're doing, one of the devices that we're doing to help our salespeople is because we can, bring our experts to bear much more quickly. So for example, in your example where you had customers in Tampa and you're in Miami, oftentimes a customer will find great value that you're actually doing them a favor if you say, look, how about I bring my expert on? He'll join us on this Zoom call for 15 minutes and give you some value that you can see immediately and give you some ideas on how to run your business or how to do whatever it is you're selling. That, the activity where you engage, where you crowdsource or team sell, we measure that, right? Because, oftentimes, and, salespeople will say things to their product managers or their product owners or their business partners, and it's met with skepticism. And I might be saying directly what the customer's telling me, but I'll go tell one of my product partners and they'll say, nah, that's not the way it's used. But if I put that product person in front of the customer and the customer says it, it's gospel. So what we have found is we've actually just launched within the last month since the COVID-19 has occurred, we launched an expert network so that we could talk to our customers and deliver them value. In our business, we have 600 customers in the automotive, energy, financial, plastics, renewable energy, where I can call an investment bank or a private equity shop. And instead of me talking, I'm like, look, give me 5 minutes. I can get you an expert on the phone in 5 minutes that'll show you some value. And, and when we measure activity, we look at, not necessarily how many calls you made, but how many meaningful conversations you made. And where did you engage your partners? Because you know what, if you can deliver 5 minutes of value, that guy will call me back in a week to say, hey, that subscription you're talking about, let's have a conversation.
I tend to believe that as we change into this new world of having contact, because I remember doing that for a long, long time with people in China, in Korea, and everywhere. It's the availability, it's the having access immediately rather than I need to plan it, I'll get there in 2 hours, I'll have to go out, get into the car, go. Now it's the immediacy. So how we can manage that technology to get it there. I think that the matter of trusting the salesperson that they're working hard, even though you're not looking at them.
That's right.
Is going to be another way. But I think that there's going to be ways that, we're going to be able to monitor the activities of anybody, as a matter of fact, out there in the trade. So one more thing that I have that I think that it's coming out. Now that we are in this situation, have you stopped contacting your customers? Do you feel that the customers don't want to be I mean, kind of connected at this point? Because
it's interesting. Now, I happen to work in a field where we sell a lot of information, insight, and analytics to many different types of organizations. And, around I guess the impact of this COVID-19 or the coronavirus on many different businesses, we are actually, like I said, we're making our experts more available to people so we can have those conversations. Existing customers are fine to talk. Now this is not a remote working issue, because what we're finding is everybody is at home and their spouse may be at home who also may be working, and their kids are at home. So it may be a challenging conversation. What we find is that new relationships are harder to form. And so what we have to do is deliver value for those people to come to us, so then we can develop those relationships. It's very hard to pick up a phone and cold call Raphael and have a conversation, because Raphael's got 2 kids and his wife is working in the other room, and he's busy. But if Raphael is working and he sees something that we are promoting and comes to us, then that conversation can be engaged. That's the only way we're getting to new people. So what we're doing is, we have a large customer base, is we're going back into our customer base and we are having conversations with our customers, because we know that they will talk to us because they're our customers. They're paying us a lot of money. But like I said earlier, we're not having as many conversations, but they are more meaningful conversations and longer conversations. As the world starts to open back up, I think, we are still going to be, working. We're only going to, staff our office 50% and have rotating days on who can be in the office and who can't be in the office. So we're going to be working out of our house at least 50% of the time on a go-forward basis, as will many of our customers. We think that'll open up some of the, the ability to reach new customers. But we think that, we've hit on a trick here to continually stay in touch with our existing customers and upsell them.
that's right. So yes, I agree that this is going to be changing, and we don't know where this is going, but I think that we cannot just stop.
No.
And being afraid to ask is not a real good excuse. I'm going to go and connect with my customers. If they had a problem before that I had identified, they still have the same problem. It may have changed the direction, and I need to know of where is he going to be going. So that conversation has to continue. And this transition has to be, we have a bunch of questions that are being asked. I don't know that we're going to be asked all of them, but answer all of them, but let me change a little one, because I think it's important. We're talking about technology, we're talking about products, let's talk about what happens in real estate. What do you think that will happen in real estate?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
Real estate, when
real
we talk
estate?
About real estate, because that requires...
That real estate's very interesting. So, first, I think in the commercial market, I think there's going to be trouble, and I'll tell you why. Like I said, we have, I work for a large firm. I'm a partner in a large firm. We have 18,000 employees. We have offices all around the world. We have 2 offices in Manhattan. On a go forward, because of social distancing, work at home, leveraging technology, we've already told the landlord in one of the offices that we're not going to renew that. We are going to, take those people and rotate them into our office. And I'm talking to a lot of customers who are doing the same, because they're realizing that they can leverage technology. Now, if you're an investment bank, they're probably not going to do that. But I do think, I've talked to a number of customers that are looking at their footprint and saying, for the foreseeable future, I'm not going to use as much of this office space as I have in the past. So I think so it's a time to reset. But if you are a real estate salesperson. Oh, if you're a real estate salesperson. Oh, okay. Well, listen, it's going to be a tough time for a real estate salesperson too, right? I mean, economic activity has ceased. Unemployment is jumping through the roof. People are not working. Banks are look at JP Morgan and Wells Fargo. JP Morgan put $6 billion to cover loan defaults. That's a projection of bad things to come. If you're a real estate investor, might be a good time to buy some things inexpensively, as we go through this recession and come out the other end. But right now, there's a real economic impact. People are losing their jobs. And I think that with the uncertainty in the market, I think it's going to be tough to move. However, if you're in a state like Florida, it might be okay, because if people are teleworking, they might want to be someplace warm with low tax base. You might be okay.
And things are starting to change. I was just talking to one of my students the other day, and he's in real estate, and he told me, yeah, what I have to do now is that I have to go in my car. The customer follows me. We park in front of the apartment. I give them the key. They go take a look at it. They come back and we have a conversation out there at about 6 to 10 feet of distance. And then we will do whatever we have to do else electronically. But that hasn't stopped him. It stopped him from.
No. Listen,
so I'm sure
you still have to sell. You still have to sell. And to keep in mind, I'm not painting a romantic picture about sales. 90% of what we do, we fail at in sales. It's the 10% that pays the bills.
So in fact, that's what we train our students in, and say, we're training you in sales, and the first thing you have to get used to is rejection.
Correct.
If you cannot get used to that, you will not be able to sell. So looking forward, tell me, what are the things that you can think of? First of all, there was one more question. Asking customers for referral, this is the right time to do that, right? Looking for some other people that.
Yeah, it's always the right time to do that. I view a referral as it speaks to you as a person, and and because you're not people. I'm asking to refer me, not my products, not my company, to refer me. And if people who trust me and like me, yeah, I always ask, who like yourself should I have a conversation with that's in your network? And I'm not shy about asking for referrals.
So we were talking yesterday that you're going forward. You have already had meetings about how you're moving forward. You're not waiting for Corona to stop. You're saying, with or without Corona, we need to start. The world is going to change. What are the tips that you would give to listeners here that are in a business? In terms of, sales is the driver of the business, in any business, right?
That's right.
Sales fixes everything. But the question is, how can we maintain a motivated sales force, B, the right size sales force, and then leverage technology? What are the things that you're starting to think about, that you're starting to do in order to move forward?
Yeah, so we're doing a couple of things. One is, this type of communication using Zoom and all these technology tools is here to stay. So we're making sure that everybody is as fluent as possible in how to conduct meetings this way. The second is we talked earlier about it's a little bit difficult to do outreach now because, people are, like I said, they're working at home with their spouses and kids. So we are doing a lot of research, and we're giving time, our staff the time to do research and working with them, so that as they come out the other end, they will have a book that they need to go after. And what does research mean? Research means looking at an addressable market that they're responsible for, uncovering, validating the names, putting together the list, understanding the product sets that they use. They may take some products from us now, trying to find out who they know in their network, searching LinkedIn, searching the web for information, and then, really starting the exploration of making those calls. Now, the calls all have to be, look, we understand it's a bad time now, you might not be ready, but at some point you will be ready to have a conversation. And we, I just want you to know what we can bring to that conversation, and start delivering value to that customer. And it could be, value could mean anything. It doesn't mean you have to give them away a product. It means that you have to show them you understand their business, you understand their challenges. And it could be an article in the Wall Street Journal. It could be an article that somebody that works for you have written. It could be anything, but deliver value to that guy. So when you pick up the call, pick up the phone when we get on the other end of this, they'll return your call because they remember that you were the person that actually gave them something that's valuable for their workday, whether it was an article in an industry periodical, etc.
So I hear you're saying kind of focus on the things you can control. You said, I'm going to train my people to make sure that they are back with the technology that they need to in order to make the job more effective in the future, and they can get used to the next generation. Do the things that you're not doing, that we weren't doing before because we didn't have the time, which is all the research and kind of really looking at the data, going back in historical, looking forward to some of the things that we didn't have before, and kind of putting together some plans.
That's right.
That we can start executing as we go forward and start moving forward with those plans as soon as possible. Keep the relationships warm by keeping in contact with them, sending them emails, sending them information that adds value to them.
That's right.
And more than anything, getting ready to jump as soon as possible. So don't be waiting until Corona is over to say, okay, now I have to start working.
That's right. Yeah, and depending on the company you're talking to, and I mean, if it's a public company, you should look at their quarterly filings and see what's going on and listen to their quarterly earnings report if you can, because oftentimes they'll tell you what their imperatives are, in terms of what their strategies are. And depending on the product you sell, you can make a case that, hey, I can help you save money or make money or manage your risk to help them, really move forward. And that's information that you can send them without asking for anything back, so that when you want to sell, because at the end of the day, I always tell people, you're picking up the phone to call somebody, you're not selling a product, you're selling a meeting. All you want to do is sell the meeting, to have a conversation. If that conversation works out, then you're selling the next meeting and you're gaining commitment, and you'll eventually get to the deal, but sell meetings first.
Advance the process. Correct. So it's like you need to keep advancing that exchange of information, so that when you get to the same plane, maybe that's the time that you essentially say, okay, well, maybe you're ready to buy now.
Well, and that's what we're doing now. We right now are working for Q4 and Q1 next year. We're anticipating a very poor Q3 for a couple of reasons. We're coming out of our we're in our second quarter. We've actually are on our pre-corona plan. We did $8 million last week. We're really doing well, but we know that's going to dip in the third quarter for a number of different, macro factors. Nobody's taking a vacation. People are going to want to get out of their house. People are going to start assessing what their business plans are for the rest of the year. So we're really, really prepping for right now for Q4 and Q1 next year.
So rather than looking, I keep this conversation going on, and you think about it, that it's happening all the time, and they're looking at let's flatten the curve in terms of Corona. I think that what we need to do is let's flatten the dip, so that we can come out of it a little bit more.
That's a good analogy.
A little bit faster.
That's exactly
a little bit faster, so that we can really move faster. So what are the things that are going to flatten that dip, so that when we come out at the end of the day, we can come out and really be successful?
Yeah. So some of the things that we're doing, and a lot of our competitors are doing, is which we used before, but we used them more sparingly, is we're doing a lot of webinars just like this, right? Where we're getting customers on, we're delivering some value, and it's amazing the amount of people that are jumping on, largely because guy's working at home, he knows he's home, he gets an invite, might be interested in it, he'll log on. We've been having invites where we have 700-800 people, 1,000 people generate some demand, and then our reps can pick up the phone, call those people, and not just bang through it like a boiler room, but do the research, call the people, because we have time. I mean, you don't have to commute. You can get to the office early, get in here, before you start making your calls, do the research, send an email, call the guy, but thoughtful email, not a high pressure situation. But setting yourself up to be the guy that will deliver value to the guy when we get out the other end, like you said. And I like that thing, flatten the dip, so that when you come out the other end, you're accelerating.
Right. So I think that we have 5 minutes left. So I would like to kind of expand now on that word that is part of our title that talks about pivoting. Mm-hmm. So tell me, what is pivoting for you, and do you have any particular tips that you can think of for the audience that they can start thinking about? I think that the first one is, don't be afraid to pivot, number one.
Right. Well, look, pivot is the word that we use now. Before it was change, right?
Change.
Yeah. And pivot is oftentimes a word used now by many businesses who experience failure. And that's exactly what salespeople do every day, is experience failure. I mean, If you're used to failing, you'll be great at succeeding. So number one, and there's a couple different ways to pivot that I would encourage people to look at. A is your career, right? I've seen many really good salespeople who were not great selling situations, not succeed and pivot out of sales. What I would tell them, and I've said, don't think of, because you failed at sales or at this one job that you can't do it someplace else, because there's a time and place for everybody. So I always encourage people to think about what you're selling and who you're selling to, what excites you, and pivot towards your strengths, right? So, for example, I happen to be and have happened to be in technology sales for the last 25, 30 years. I'm not a technologist at all, but I found that the high price points of selling technology, the ability to articulate a value proposition, for me, was that pivot from the commodities. When the bust happened and technology, internet companies were going down, and those were my main customers, compliance was coming up because of a lot of rules and regs people ran afoul of rules and regs, and I realized that there were going to be a need for a lot of compliance solutions. I made another pivot, right? So you should pivot your career. You should always look to figure out, what am I doing? Is it interesting to me? Can I make money doing it? And can I do it for somebody and deliver some value, meaning somebody for a customer? The second pivot I'd make is, is looking at the macro environment, right now with the pandemic, or 2008, 2009 with the financial crisis, or 2001 with the bust or boom. In every single one of those situations, you have to make a determination as to what do I need to do to be successful, right? And that's what really separates the good reps from the great reps. Is great reps figure that out very quickly and get ahead of the game, right? Because you don't want to be, the last guy, implementing a great idea. You want to be the first or second guy implementing a great idea. And, knowing what the challenges are and what the customer challenges are and being responsive, that will help you. You don't have to be that smart. Just ask your customers. They will tell you what they want. And then, the part of that macro environment is looking at, what's happening in the world around you. I mean, what are the hot industries? Where do I need to spend my time? Clean energy, reg and compliance, ESG, you hear a lot about. There's a lot of different ways in this world to really, to apply your sales craft. And there's a lot of very interesting that puts you on the front of the Wall Street Journal.
Yeah. So I think two words that I want to leave everybody here with the idea of pivoting. Number one, don't be afraid to pivot. That's the first thing you cannot do. And number two is that no matter what you do, you have to pivot again, get used to it.
That's right.
Because things are going to happen. If it's not the competition, it's going to be the environment. But there is, what we can guarantee are taxes, death, and change. It's going to happen. So it's going to happen anytime. And as we look forward to this, and you were giving some advice to students that are in school, would you recommend that they take a sales course?
Definitely. Listen, I would recommend everybody, and it doesn't matter if you are in college right now, or a senior, or I would everybody at least try it for a small time, and definitely take a sales course. The reason is because even if you are, a lot of my partners are the product guys, the guys who are build the products and sell. But if you can't sell an idea internally, you're not going to be successful. So sales skills are paramount for most of what you do in your life, right?
In your career and business.
Articulate a value proposition and get people to on your side of the table. Doesn't matter if you're selling directly, which you carry the quota, close a deal, get the commission, or if you're building a product and you need to sell investors to invest in you, or you need to sell your manager to let you run an initiative, etc. Learning to sell is not going to hurt you. It's going to help you in many ways.
You and I are in violent agreement on that one. So listen, Jennifer, I think that it's time for opening this for Q&A. Let's see how do you want to handle this?
Well, we've been getting quite a bit of questions throughout. I feel like you're covering up of the topics, but I think an interesting question here, especially as things open back up and start to normalize a little bit. I know you said Zoom is not going anywhere, the electronic meetings are not going anywhere, but do you think that those sales folks who choose to have those in-person meetings will have a leg up on the people who are choosing to do the electronic version? And what do you think are some solutions around that?
I don't think you'll be successful if you don't use the technology. You just won't, because you won't be able to see as many people, right? Look, I need to be in front of people. I make a living in restaurants, it's important for me to be in front of people, press the flesh and talk, and to establish long-term relationships. You really, at some point, going to want to be in front of people. But there's got to be a mix. If you don't take advantage of technology, you may be successful, but you won't be as successful as somebody that does, somebody that can actually see twice as many people. As Raphael said, you don't have to get on a plane to show a product or do a demo, right? I mean, we've been locked up for 4 weeks. I've been doing lots of sales with customers that haven't gone to their office. In fact, we just closed a deal, pretty big deal, where I hadn't seen a guy in about 5 years, and we talked. He said, "Look, as soon as we get on this other end, I want to, I want you to come take me to lunch." So I think you're going to have to do both.
Yeah.
Agree.
No question. Outside of sales, real quick, any books that you would recommend for reading on sales or just in general?
There's a lot of sales books. I'm happy to I'll send you a list, Jen, that you can distribute to the team. But there's a whole list of sales books that are very valuable. I'll send you a list. But it is, and again, for people who want to self-educate, easiest thing to do in the world is look at some of the books that are out there. And there's some great books, modern books. There's a guy that just wrote a book, Graham Hawkins, on basically he's talking about the death of B2B salespeople.
That's right, from Australia. I was reading that. He's from New Zealand or Australia?
Australia, that's right.
Australia,
I think it's from New Zealand, based Australia. That's exactly right. Yeah,
I know.
Yeah, and he talks about the importance of creating your digital presence, making sure that people, because when I send somebody an email, the first thing they do is they look me up on LinkedIn to see that I'm, and who they say they are. But I'll send you a list of books that you can distribute out. And some of them are going to be older books that I think are just really great mind benders that help you think about sales. Some of them are new that give you practical application on, how to navigate conversations.
That's awesome. That'd be great. We can distribute that. By the way, I think I mentioned this earlier in the call, but this is being recorded for those who were hoping to join and couldn't join today. And if we want to forward this to any of your teams, for those of you who are joining from a business. So let's see here. Michael is asking, Florida is dependent on tourism, domestic and international travel. With people not traveling now and upcoming in the future, recommend reaching out to these clients, and what message should we be sending? Similar questions are coming in around this topic, seeming greedy if we're, or tone deaf if we're not paying attention to what our clients are going through, and getting that right balance of not being afraid to ask, like you were talking about earlier. Yeah,
listen, I mean, you're just gonna, and sometimes brute force is just gonna have to, be the way, right? I mean, listen, if you're selling tourism packages and you're working for a hotel in the hospitality industry, and your hotel's empty, you're probably in a good position to offer a deal, right? And so, look, I mean, everybody loves a deal. People are going to get on airplanes. People are going to have sales kickoff in Florida like they do every year. What you need to do is make sure that you're at the top of the list when they make those calls to start, when the airplane engines rev up again, and when everybody feels safe going to a hotel and, and navigating through that. It will be some time. So you've got to be thoughtful about who you're selling to. You probably don't want to call a huge corporation that has 2,000 people that are going to fill your hotel. You may want to go, a little smaller to, some, boutique type of firms, just to prime the pump, get people in, because, you can't live on all big deals. Sometimes those small deals will turn to big deals. Take what you can get for right now.
Change tactics.
That's right.
That's it.
I love this question from Felicia. Is related to attracting a client base that's be older and not familiar with the technology as much as the younger populations who kind of grew up with it and are used to working through digital channels.
Yeah, I mean, we have some of those clients that, and look, I mean, this was the conversation we had 20 years ago around email. I don't use email. Now everybody uses email, right?
I still don't use email.
Yeah. So look, if you are selling and you have a large population of people in your that you're selling to that don't use it, you may want to think about what you're selling and what you're doing for a living, right? Now, if they're all billionaires and are not afraid to write a check, they'll see you, right? I mean, but I would really think about, if you're selling into a market that people are not comfortable using the internet, because my mother uses it. She's 86 years old. She uses Zoom, right? And by the way, there's value. Remember, it doesn't have to be your product, but if you had a customer who doesn't use it, say, hey, do you mind if I stop by? I'll show you how to use it. And that value that you deliver to him, he'll never forget that. He'll buy it.
I like that.
To sell him.
I like that. The other thing, by the way, in regards to all that is that as I'm a teacher and I have all these young people telling me, Professor, are you on WhatsApp? Are you in Instagram? Are you in all this? Well, if your customers are using it, you might as well learn how to use it yourself. If not, you're going to be not connected.
That's exactly right.
So I have one last question for you so we can stay on track, and there might be some follow-up questions depending on what your answer is, but I want to almost get off the topic a little bit. I know that your business is, it's wide, right? It's not just about sales. I know that's an oxymoron considering that's the topic, but any other advice or just insights on some things that you've been dealing with that not are necessarily related to sales, but just insights that you would like to offer the audience as we navigate this craziness?
Yeah, well, listen, first I'd say it's not an insight, but stay safe because this is, a serious pandemic and a lot of people are dying, right? And I know they say it doesn't affect young people. That's not true. It does. Second is use the time wisely to, read, connect with people. I mean, we're all stuck, right? We're all stuck in our homes and in our houses. And just make yourself better. Figure out what it is you need to do to make yourself better. And it could be your work, could be your studies, could be, I've got a daughter who's been furloughed. She's, she had a job and she's, so she can't do anything. So she's retaking piano lessons online,
Awesome.
but do something to improve yourself in this short, while we're in the middle of this pandemic.
Yeah. Yep.
I agree with you.
I didn't mean to interrupt. I just
No. I was just commenting to myself that I agree with you. That this is the time to really start looking at yourself. This is a pause. And whenever I have a pause, I look around and I say, what is the change coming? Why do I feel a little bit uncomfortable in this silence? I need to do something. So like I tell my students, you got to get comfortable with the uncomfortable and you got to move on and try to reinvent yourself.
Yeah, no, this has been absolutely great. I so appreciate you taking the time. I know this is probably Zoom call number 15 for you today. And we're so very grateful for everything that you do for us and everything that you do for our students. And Rafa, you as well. You guys have a tremendous program with the Sales Lab, and we're so fortunate to have you on our team. Just to recap what we said at the beginning, we'll be sending out the information to some of the information we shared earlier. Support resources from FIU that we can offer you, as well as access to a link to our emergency funding for students. Again, it's something that we're really sticking to, is that we're really in this together. If you're in a position where you can give, please give. And if you're in a position where you need help, please reach out. You'll send all of the information your way. I will get the book list from Eric and send that to you guys. And we are actually early. Wow, this is so great. So thank you guys so much for your time.
You're welcome. It was a pleasure.
Eric, it's a pleasure. And we have a conversation that we haven't finished yet. So we'll be talking somewhere in the future. Absolutely. Sounds good.
All right, guys. Thanks so much.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Stay safe.
Hey.
Bye-bye.
Bye.